Wizard101 test room just changed Rusalka again, and this is gonna completely change up the entire game. Y'all, I don't think any other spell in the history of Wizard101 has gone through as many changes as this spell. From the beginning to what it used to be to what it is now, it has gone through change after change after change. It looks like they've arrived on something in the second week of spring test run. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what the card seems to be doing, it's still gonna be doing the full 1395 damage that it does, which already makes it extremely powerful by itself. But now it's gonna give a random 45 blade or a random 45 healing blade. So you could hit out of it or you could heal out of it. You have no control of what you'll get out of it. Now, when I made a video on this last week, a bunch of people, they were really weighing in on Rusalka, which is why I wanted to make a whole video on Rusalka, Storm, and what it means, like, well, what they're doing. Now, last week, right, the change that it did to this spell compared to like Live Realm was that they made it so that you would get a random damage blade no matter what, but it would range between 35% and 55%. Now, I'm just gonna keep it a buck. A 55% blade, I'm very thankful that that's not even in the game. I even think a 45% blade is very high, but the fact that it's offset by a chance of getting a guiding light, basically, especially even a 45 guiding light, I just think that the spell has become so unique and special that I'm okay with it almost. Now, that changed, right? The 35, 45, or 55 blade change. The reason why I don't think that was gonna actually help, it's because of two reasons. One, it's the problem is that it doesn't actually solve the fundamental issue with Storm, and it's the fact that it has low HP, and the one thing that it's given to make up for low HP is not viable when spells like Rusalka are just focused on more and more damage. The other very important point, and this is something that I think a lot of people are not thinking about, this update also includes a new gauntlet, and the new gauntlet, it drops like a lot of gear. So this gauntlet, the Nightmare Swamp Gauntlet, I will be making a full-blown video on all the gear from it if you guys want, but this gauntlet drops a new version of the boots, like the Aeon boots, that's a little bit more defensive, but it's still way better than the Void boot. When we're comparing the Aeon gear to the Void boots, the reason why the Aeon gear is just better is mainly for most schools, the health is higher on the Aeon, and it also gives more pierce, and therefore the extra resist that you get from the Void boots, they don't matter as much. But in my opinion, the new Gauntlet boots, they have a very healthy medium between the Void boots and the Aeon boots. They give a little bit more HP than the Void boots. They give a little bit more pierce, I believe, a little bit more damage. So instead of being way too defensive, it's actually a very healthy middle ground. And the reason this middle ground is still very important is because it retains the shield pin that the Void boots have. So the new boots in the Gauntlet, like if you look at the Aeon boots, right, you see two sword pins and a power pin. What you're gonna see on the Gauntlet boots, if they keep it as it is in test room, which I see no reason for them not to, you're gonna see a shield pin available that's way better than the Void boots shield pin because it's on a piece of gear that's just really competitive. This extra shield pin, I guarantee you, it will go towards Storm. If you're on a depth, if you're on a balance, if you're on an ice. Might sound like a long-winded point, but the more and more you go down buffing Storm for damage and giving it 55 blades and a billion damage hits, the more you do that, the more you're just gonna see 3 schools out of the 7 in this game literally just set so hard that it's actually pretty hard to win. Now, I'm not saying that Storm Pin is not gonna be a regular thing as time goes on. Maybe it will be, but that's all the more reason why going further and further in damage is just not gonna help Storm. Resist naturally counters damage, and for that reason alone, Storm needs another tool in order to compete in PvP and also to retain its individuality. Because honestly, if you're so heavily countered by resist, why would you not just go on a pure school like Fire or Myth and just not play Storm ever? So this is why I think they're going this route with Rusalka's rat. Now, very interestingly, they also accompanied this change with a slight buff to healing current. And y'all, this is a meaningful buff. It went from 325 on the initial heal to 385. And in case you're wondering what that little 75 thing is, you'll get a 75 heal per round for either 3 rounds, 4 rounds, or 5 rounds. It's another very random element in terms of using Storm. This means that for 3 pips, you can actually get the effect of a Satyr while also, very importantly, setting up things like Storm Shark, maybe, you know, a Jin, you know, you have that overtime heal. You could also heal in advance. And I feel like that's very important because you really can't do that. I feel like a 60 healing buff That's a big deal, especially when it's accompanied by the fact that you might get a 45% healing blade out of a Rusalka, which already does a nutty amount of damage. I'm very glad that they're going this route, mainly because I don't think there's much further to go when it comes to damage in Wizard 101. And I firmly believe that if they're gonna like increase damage as they release new worlds and stuff, they absolutely will have to increase HP like accordingly, because otherwise you're never going to get a situation where there's progression and damage isn't too crazy. So the route that remains is to create more strategy and counterplay for Storm. Now, will this make Storm meta? That is a conversation that I think is very important to have, and it requires diving very deep into what I guess the devs want Storm to be. And I'll commend them on this. I think they've kept one thing very, very clear. There is intent to keep Storm as a very swingy school. And what do I mean by swingy? What word is that, Sauce? Well, we're talking about spells like Wild Bolt that for 2 pips can do 10 damage or it can do 1,000 damage. We're talking about Healing Current, which could heal you for, you know, a little bit or over a satyr's worth of healing for 3 pips. We're talking about the new Hammer of Thor, which no one really uses, but this spell is the peak of randomness. What this spell does is it does a hit and then gives you a random blade and gives the opponent a random weakness. Your blade can be a guiding light or a damage blade, and the weakness can be an infection or just a regular weakness. Even the range of damage on spells that don't have utilities on them is representative of a swingy nature. Storm Owl doing a 1330 damage hit versus a 1470, that is a gigantic difference, and you won't see that on other spells. The competitiveness of Storm will rely entirely on how people take advantage of how swingy the game can be. If the game gives you a damage blade, you should go high on damage. If it gives you a healing blade, go high on healing. If you're trying to break a shield with a Wild Bolt and you happen to get a max bolt, go crazy. But if not, be cautious. I feel like that type of, like, you know, ability to really switch round by round, I think that's what they want Storm to be. I think spells like Rusalka, I think spells like the new Healing Current, even Hammer of Thor and Storm Owl, like, they're all representative of a swinging school that I think is going to take a lot more than just brain dead damage in order to actually, like, master. I think Storm is a very, very important school for them to get right, because once Storm is right, you've actually resolved a school that operates on an extreme. And setting extremes is the most important thing you can do on a game when it comes to balancing, right? When you have the most offensive extreme, like, you know, it's in a balanced form, and the most defensive extreme is, then you have room to work with. I know this is probably going to be a controversial choice on their part. I think there's going to be a lot of people that have a lot of issues with this. I'm still pretty undecided on Rusalka being good, but in my opinion, this is still a huge buff from Live Realm. Live Realm can give you a 35 blade or 2 different blades that are flat blades that just aren't good. Even if I get a guiding light that I don't plan on using, I still think it's about the same value as a flat blade. It shouldn't make enough of a difference for it to matter. My prediction for where Storm is going to be in the next meta, I think it's still going to be low. And I'm not saying that because of the fact that these changes aren't good. I think it's because more people will be Storm pinning, and it will be harder to deal with it, and there will be much less room for error on this school. I think the only saving grace is the fact that you might be able to heal a little bit more to mitigate some of the inherent RNG in this school. Overall, the one thing that I hope they never do when it comes to balancing Storm, and I know this is probably a hot take, I hope they don't make it a consistent school with consistent outcomes. And the reason I say that is because if you really want consistency, I don't know why you would ever play on a Storm. There's all these other schools where you can make all the safe choices in PvP, all the safe bets here and there. There's something so fun about something unpredictable, and that is literally in the lore of the game. It's like a creative school. It's an unpredictable school. That should be the point of what they're doing, and I think they're doubling down on it in a way that they haven't been in recent updates, and I'm very happy to see it. Let me know what you guys think of both the Rusalka change and the Healing Current change. I think they both go hand in hand. Do you guys think that healing is ever going to be viable for Storm? Do you guys think they're forcing it? Do you guys think they should make it viable? What are you guys' opinions on healing and Storm and all of that? I wanted to make a pretty solid case for it. I'm a little biased because I like when schools do more than one thing, but obviously y'all are the ones that are weighing in the comment section, so let me know y'all's opinions. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Leave us up if you're new. Another test run video in the book. There's even more test run content coming, so make sure y'all turn on notice, y'all. See y'all soon. Stay awesome. I look forward to reading y'all's comments, and yeah.